Morning, everybody, and welcome to our first webinar of 2021. My name is Aidan Shine, I'm CEO of Southeast BIC, and delighted to have you all on here this morning with us. So this is our, as I said, our first webinar of 2021, and this is a continuation of a series of webinars that we have been doing since last year. So last year, I think we did 8 webinars on various topics of interest to startups and small businesses here in the Southeast. Some were specific to the pandemic, like we did remote working and the payroll function of the pandemic, and others then are more generally of interest to startups, and we did everything from finance to cash flow management to business modeling. And if you missed any of those, check out our YouTube channel, Southeast Business and Innovation Centre, and you can catch up there. So today we're delighted to be hosting this webinar on the topic of marketing and branding for startups. So it's in our work with our clients, it's a topic that comes up every day in our one-to-one work with our clients. And I'm delighted to say that we have 3 great speakers lined up for us. Today we have Rosemary Ward from Southeast BIC, and Rosemary works with startups and small businesses every day in her work here in the BIC. We have Stephen Cummins, who is Creative Director with Imagine, a Southeast-based creative graphic and web design studio. And we're going to hear from an entrepreneur, Marion Kennedy of A New Mum. A New Mum provides a range of postpartum self-care products. So we're delighted to have these 3 great speakers on board with us today. And what we're going to do is we're going to hear from each of them in turn. So each are going to make a short presentation on various topics. So Rosemary's going to talk about marketing, customer segmentation and customer discovery from a startup perspective. And Stephen is going to talk about the benefits of branding. And then Marion will close off the 3 speakers with her perspective on marketing and branding and her journey to date with her startup, A New Mum. We will have plenty of opportunity for questions, so please do use the Q&A box as we go along. So the idea is that I think we'll hear from our 3 speakers, and then we'll allow plenty of time at the end for a good Q&A session where you can ask those questions, but do keep them coming during the presentations, and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can during that Q&A session. We're going to maybe here for about an hour, no longer than that, so we will allow plenty of time at the end for that. We're also going to have 3 polls during the session as well. This is just to make it interactive for you guys, and also to kind of get insights on some of the topics that we're going to discuss today, what's actually happening on the ground with the startups in the region. So appreciate if you could answer those questions. It's all anonymous and all the rest of it, but we might get some useful insights from that as we go along. I suppose just for those of you on this morning who don't know about Southeast BIC, we're the Southeast Business Innovation Centre, and we work very, very closely with startups here in the Southeast region. We're a not-for-profit organisation, and we're funded primarily by Enterprise Ireland to work with startups and small businesses in the region. And we're part of a network of 4 such BICs in Ireland, pretty much covering all of the Republic. So we have Dublin BIC, West BIC, Cork BIC, and ourselves. And we're also part of a European network of BICs, over 170 BICs located throughout the European Union. We work very, very closely with our colleagues in the local enterprise offices and Enterprise Ireland as well in delivering our services to our clients. And what we do work with clients on a very much intensive one-to-one basis. So we're not trainers or anything like that. It's very much practical one-on-one work with our clients. And that ranges from people who have an idea that they want to explore, up to companies maybe who've been in existence for a while and are looking at a new strategy or new products or whatever. The one commonality, I suppose, with our client base is that pretty much from the get-go in their strategy, they're looking to export and to grow and to scale their business. So it's the solution that our clients are providing have applications beyond Ireland and have a global reach. And in terms of how we actually work with clients, it's very much, as I said, one-to-one, but it all starts with looking at the business model and what that business model is in terms of some of the topics we're going to discover today around who the customer is, what's the route to market, what's the cost base, what's the revenue model. And that's very, very important. That feeds into the whole business planning process. The ultimate goal is to get the appropriate funding at the appropriate time for each of our clients, be that local enterprise office funding or Enterprise Ireland funding or private funding. We manage the Halo Business Angel Network here in the Southeast as well, and that matches companies that are looking for investment with our network of investors. And we prep the companies intensively for that and make the introductions to these investors. So that's kind of a brief look at what we do. If you want more information, check out southeastbic, southeastbic.ie for more information there, or indeed sign up for our newsletter. Every month we send out a newsletter outlining all of the events that are occurring throughout the region, not just our own, and useful information and tips for entrepreneurs as well. So please do sign up for that as well. So I think, without further ado, I think we'll start proceedings, and I'll stop sharing. Yeah, Rosemary, you can, yeah, good. Yeah, you can take on the screen there and you can start. You okay, Rosemary?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Perfect. How are we? Good morning. It's great to see so many people here today. As Aidan said, my name is Rosemary. I'm a startup business consultant here at Southeast BIC, and my main role is to work with high potential startup prospects in the region, working with them using business modeling, business planning, and working on their strategy to get them investor ready. Today, we're talking about one of my favorite subjects. We're talking about marketing, but most specifically marketing for startups or early stage businesses. So here at Southeast BIC, we meet entrepreneurs at different stages. Those who arrive with the concept, those with a minimum viable product that they're currently trialing, and those who are already generating revenue. They're in different industries with different backgrounds. Many have technical backgrounds. Often the marketing and sales processes are overlooked in the rush of the product, the technology, the features, and what it can do. Often the entrepreneur is very focused on their own skill set and somehow stick their head in the sand around the commercialization piece. And the sales and marketing plans we see can be quite generic. One piece of advice that we hear regularly from one of our old clients, some of you will be familiar with him, David Walsh of NetWatch and now Halo Care, is that starting a business and building a business is a team sport. You need to acknowledge that you may not have all the skills required to start this business, but you need to invest in all the elements to make it work. And sales and marketing is no exception. So this is not playing the game here. There we go. Now more than ever, connecting with the customer is absolutely crucial, especially since our traditional routes to market and communication paths are somewhat closed to us. But even before now, the successful startups had put the work into understanding their value proposition, and within that focused on two elements: the problem that your customer has and how important or how much of a priority it is, and the solution that you have to their problem, all articulated and communicated in the customer's language. This can't be done without talking to customers themselves. So even if you're at an early stage and think that sales, marketing, and branding isn't for you yet, or you'll be selling business to business, so you don't feel it'll be hugely relevant, you'll be surprised at how early in the process you need to kick this off. Working on this value proposition and building the brand to assist you to communicate it is the next step in the process. Which brings me to customers. We hear a lot about segmentation and targeting, and it all sounds really theoretical. But if you're starting a new business, you quickly learn that the cost of acquisition of your customer or client becomes a huge part of your operating costs, be that through the cost of sales teams and people and marketing and sales communications. So the more targeted, the better. There is a myth that investors and or the likes of Enterprise Ireland or the Leos, etc., are interested in global opportunities. Sure, they're interested in export potential and growth and scaling for sure, but you have to start somewhere. Being really clear about who your customer is crucial at the early stage, because at the start, it's all about validation. Stating early on that your target customer is all SMEs or all consumers aged 18 to 34 isn't going to help you at the beginning. You'll see here an image of one of my favorite buildings in the whole world. It's the Flatiron Building in New York City. The thin end of the Flatiron Building represents your initial segments, the ones you can afford to target and attract based on the current resources of your business. You do this to validate your product, build your sales processes, understand the sales process, see what works and doesn't work, and understand your marketing. Only then do you widen out to another segment and then another segment. This shows a really strategic approach to sales and marketing. And sometimes the narrower the segment, the better, because you can identify them and then they're much easier to communicate. So one bit of advice here, and the one takeaway that I'd love you to take from this slide is narrow your segment, know exactly who you're dealing with. Please don't start a business plan saying, this is a global opportunity, we can sell to all SMEs, because the resources that you'll have won't be able to target all those SMEs. So the narrower the target and the more specific and the industry specific or geographically specific, the better. So now that you know that the target customers and have narrowed your segment to a specific accessible group that you and the resources of your plan and your early stage business can afford to target, then you move to validate it. First, discovering and identifying, are you right in your assumption? Does this group of people need or want your product or solution? And are they willing to pay? And making the changes along the way based on the feedback to your product or to your sales process. Then proving that by selling to them and getting revenue from them. Then the next step is rolling out your proven product and your proven sales and marketing process to a wider group within that segment and scaling further. In an innovative, scalable startup, the ones that Southeast BIC normally works with, this phase needs considerable investment, but the practice is the same, irrespective of the size of the business or the size of the ambition. I mentioned at the start that startups often use a cookie cutter generic approach to their sales and marketing plan and hope that that A, works, and B, gets through an investment phase. However, from the customer discovery and validation phase has already taken place, then a very specific sales process and marketing support should be identified. One bit of advice, which is especially relevant now, is that you don't put reps on the road or salespeople out selling your product until you are drowning in warm leads. And warm leads will only be created with strong lead generation and good sales process supported by inbound marketing. Throwing money at sales reps or maybe appointing a digital marketing agency to support your business in isolation won't sell your product. A really, really strong internal sales process managed from the very top of the organization, managed by you, the founder, the CEO, using CRM, using a sales funnel approach and a clear path to revenue is the key to success for a true scaling company. So I hope I set the scene somewhat. I know it was a slightly whistle-stop tour of startup marketing, but I really look forward to hearing from Stephen and Marion, who are going to put a slightly different slant, both the agency and the entrepreneur slant. And I'm going to be here to answer your questions later as well.
Sorry, Rosemary. Yeah, so our first poll, Rosemary's going to be putting that up for a second. In a second there, have you identified your optimum route to market yet? And there's a choice there: direct sales, retail, direct online, third party online, or via a partner. So I would ask you there just to, we're waiting for Stephen maybe to set up his presentation, that people click through that and we'll see, and we'll give some of the results maybe at the end during the Q&A session. So now our second speaker is Stephen from Imagine, and yeah, Stephen's going to talk to us about the benefits of branding from his perspective and from Imagine's perspective. So Stephen, over to you.
Thanks a million, Aidan. Thanks a million, Rosemary. We're all looking at the right screen, I take it, the usual question at the start of any Zoom meeting.
Yeah, we are indeed. Yeah, perfect.
Great. So as Rosemary and Aidan said, I'm going to give you a kind of a very, very quick, short overview of the benefits of branding and then how we can apply that to the startup space. A little bit about ourselves. So I am the creative director with Imagine. Imagine are based in Waterford. We've been around for 20 years this year, and we're hoping to kind of be back to some sort of a level of normality to have a 20th birthday party in person rather than a Zoom party. imagine we kind of work across three spaces. In recent years, we have moved into VR for tourism and heritage. That's a very, very exciting space, and it brings in all the skills that we have in the company. Immersive training then is another area that we have pivoted into in recent years. And again, that's using all of the skills that we have in-house. And the creative agency element of the business then is I suppose what we're best known for, and kind of where the business started 20 years ago. So that's everything from branding to graphic design to web design, video and photography, and the virtual reality team then has kind of grown from those. I suppose what makes us very unique is the having all of these skills in-house. It means that for particular projects where we see the potential for cross-departmental engagement, we really use it. So for custom 3D modeling, we'll bring in the VR team. If the VR team need the expertise of the graphic design department to kind of help them with styling, or even something as simple as start plates and end credits, we would work with the video team on those aspects of video projects. We do animations, we do all sorts of graphic design, and that cross-pollination between all the various teams in the agency kind of makes every day exciting and creative, which is what you want from a creative agency. To get down to brass tacks, then I suppose we'll start off with what is a brand. A brand is not a logo, and a brand is not a product or service. So a brand is a relationship. When you think of McDonald's, or when you think of Disney, or when you think of Trump, you think certain things spring to mind, and that's the relationship you have with everything that business, company, organization represents. Every interaction you've had, whether that's a direct interaction or whether it is an indirect interaction, that's your interpretation and your relationship with that organization. All of those aspects go into building a brand. You could say the most successful startup entrepreneur in the world, Jeff Bezos, says your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room, and that's a great way of representing that. To build your brand for success, we're going to answer a few questions. These are the questions we ask every client, whether they are in business 20, 30, 40, 50 years, or whether they're a startup. Who are you? Who needs to know? And why should they care? They're the three questions we ask. Now we might dress them up in slightly flowery language, but ultimately they're the three questions that we ask, and they help us to establish everything we need to know to help with the brand identity and with the marketing collateral that will accompany that brand identity. So to start then, who are you? This is what we start off every conversation with, asking this simple question. We conduct workshops with clients, and we will look to deep dive into their core values. We typically break that down into an anchor value, a business value, an emotive value, and a personality value. At the end of the workshop session, we'll have done a really deep dive into what the business stands for, what their what they want people to think of when they think of the business, what they want people to feel when they think of the business, and then we start talking about looking at their customers and what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. At the end of the session, we'll have a very kind of thorough picture of what the values for that particular business or organization is. We'd also, need to say, know what you're selling. particularly in the startup space, people can be, you know, quite technology focused, or they can be, you know, quite focused on features. So know what you're selling. Also, as Rosemary touched on, know your value proposition. So, you know, how is this going to benefit the customer? Know what value your product or service is going to bring to your customer. Next question we'll often ask is, who needs to know? It's one thing having a brilliant product or service, but who needs to know about it? Who's your customer going to be? So as Rosemary mentioned, you know, segmentation, identifying your target customer. Don't be afraid to go too narrow. What we often find is that by identifying a bullseye customer, you're often able to capture people who are slightly off to the bullseye as well. Identify the challenges that your targets face and identify why they buy. As Rosemary touched on, it's about identifying the customer problem, and then how can your solution kind of solve that problem for them. Identify why they buy, and then look to get inside their head to make, you know, your product or service what they think of when they have that problem. What we also ask then is what platforms are appropriate to the audience you've identified, and what media are appropriate. So if we've spent the time, we know who your target customer is, we know what problems their business has, we know how your product can solve those problems, then let's look at what platforms are appropriate. You know, if you're selling high-end medical devices, then TikTok is probably not a good investment. Again, if you're, you know, selling to the farming or the agriculture community, you know, the Farmer's Journal might be a good newspaper or traditional media to allocate spend to. So it's about identifying, you know, narrowing down focus on who's appropriate as a customer, what's appropriate as a you know, a medium, whether it's a social platform, a professional platform, or traditional media that's appropriate for spend, and then we can start to look at allocating spend towards those sections. The big question, and we've touched on it a little bit, is why should they care? Show how your product can solve their challenges. So this is something that comes up again and again, particularly with technology startups, and particularly when selling tech. People can get very excited about the technology and about what it is that their particular innovation can do, or their particular service can do, without spinning it and looking at it from the customer's perspective. So the big thing is, sell me the benefits, not the features. What's in it for me? That's the most simple question. And you know, if there's kind of one way to you know, cut through the cloud and cut through the clutter, it's the what's in it for me question. Put yourself in the customer's shoes. So that's the big question. The last thing then, why should you care? So, you know, I've been talking here for 10 minutes or so about you know, why you should do all this, and what's in it from the customer's perspective. But you know, why should I care? Really, the benefits of a defined brand can be broken down like this. If we know the brand values, if we know what the company stands for, if we know so that's who you are, if we know who your target audience is and what's appropriate for them, and we know what the solutions to the challenges they face are, it means we can be very specific with the choice of colors, the choice of typography, types of words and actions. A good example that I like to give is, we're all familiar with the font Comic Sans. Comic Sans is you know, great friendly little font that comes with Microsoft Office. You know, everyone has used it at some point or another. You know, that typeface in bright green is not appropriate for a bank. So a bank or any sort of business will have certain things that are appropriate. So it will guide choice of colors, typography, the communication, the language that they use. It'll also explain what you do and how you are different. Having a defined brand, knowing what your values are. We use the phrase that the brand values are the North Star. So everything should point back to the brand values. And when everything points back to the brand values, we can ensure that communication is consistent and considered. So when you're setting a marketing brief, when you're setting a communications brief, your brand values are set in stone. You know what needs to be communicated, you know what's appropriate for the brand, and you know what the desired outcome is. This gives you something to measure against. So if a designer comes back to you, or if a copywriter comes back to you, or someone comes back with a proposed solution that doesn't meet the brand values, then you can be very, very specific to say why it's not working, and let's try again. It also is a measure of success for the designer or the copywriter or whoever's creating the content, that yes, this has met the brand values, and let's push this out there. Thank you very much. I'll hand back to Aidan. That's great. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Stephen. That's excellent. And we look forward to some questions on that in a few moments after the next speaker. I think, Rosemary, we have, I think we have a second poll coming up here now as well.
Is a second poll. I hope.
Oh, yeah, this is on our relevance to maybe to Stephen there. Have you worked with a marketing agency yet to create your marketing message or to build your brand? So it's a simple yes, no, or not yet, but intend to. So while Marion is getting ready with her presentation there, we can, if we could get you to just tick one of those boxes, that would be great. As I said, we can have a little share of information then at the end. It's just kind of interesting data to have a look at. So our final speaker is Marion Kennedy, the CEO and founder of A New Mum. And I think it's fair to say with Marion that branding and imagery and the look and feel of your website and all your collateral is very important to A New Mum and getting across your message. So the floor is yours for the next while, Marion, and looking forward to hear what you have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Aidan, and thanks very much, everyone. I'm delighted to be here this morning. So I'm basically just going to give you a quick background about myself, about us as a brand, and what we've done so far with regards to marketing, all taken into consideration the context that we're actually a startup company. So just to give you a little bit about myself. So I'm from Clonmel, and my business was basically brought about by the birth of my child back in 2015. Our company is called PPR Healthcare, which stands for Postpartum Relief. And we've developed a range of comfort and hygienic products to assist new mothers in the recovery after they've given birth. We trade under the name A New Mum, because essentially that's who our products are for. But there is a reason why I've said PPR Healthcare there. I just wanted to show you for the branding in a moment, for our logos and imagery. So yeah, why we set up the business back in 2015, I had a very big baby and walked out of me, and I incurred tears. I found it really hard to take care of myself hygienically afterwards. And when I was looking online and when I went to the shops, there just seemed to be very little there. So I started to do a lot of research and undertake some studies. I've done a lot of accelerators throughout the last few years. There is a lot of support out there for startups, as you know, but it's the importance of trying to, do them and learn from them. So what I've done is our brand, then we've split our products into two segments. We have an over-the-counter range going to launch this year, and we have a short-term medical device that we're working on behind the scenes. And that's where we're going with our brands. And we've spent a lot of time, trying to market, to understand the markets that we're in, and to, even the vessels, what you're actually selling to the people. It's a lot harder to sell products than it is to sell tech as well. People know that are in the product regions. So this is actually how it started. This was the logo, the very first one. I hadn't a clue what to call the company. And I had always was saying postpartum relief, that's what we wanted to do. And somebody recommended to do healthcare. So a friend of a friend helped me do this logo. And it was the soft and the imagery and pads and bubbles, and lavender was my color. I had envisioned that was always going to be my color because of the softness, relation to TENS machines, relaxations. And it was always just my go-to. So as you can see, this was very, very busy logo. And I didn't even have the name of New Mum. But the best advice I got was to start the company was to actually go to an agency. And that has been worth its weight in gold to me. To understand, like, I didn't even know how to start with the name. Like, a New Mum took me so long. I did a brainstorming idea, and the big piece of paper, put like the customer in the middle. And again, target customer, as Rosemary said, you have to know who you're selling to. And ours was it was pregnant women, but the benefit was for a new mother. And like, I had all the paper was just like my head some days. It goes scribbles everywhere. And the focus then, like, I just looked at it and I said, it's for a new mum. So that was our brand. Wasn't going to be a new mammy now, like very Irish, but a new mum was it just had a ring to it and it sounded right. So I contacted a marketing agency, and that was the best thing, as I said, as a startup company, that I could have possibly done. They asked me this, they gave me this brief, and they said, answer all these questions, just like Stephen had said. And they made sure that they said, like, take your time, answer them honest and openly. And I did, and I took the time, and I was actually blown away what marketing companies could do. It was my first engagement with them, and they came back with the report, and I'm just going to show you briefly what they came back with. So this was just an example of what an agency came back with to me. So a gentle push. They got me straight even there with the push and hook, line and sinker. But they took pieces from my brief and they expressed them here on the logos. So this was like a roundup of, like this: we retained the original icon with communications of joy, excitement. They related to a mother's new tummy or arms holding a baby. So I knew they were getting me straight away. The next one they sent was another little push. This color was very bright for me, and it looked more like a beauty brand, the dash. Again, it was reflective of war paint, scars, warriors. That's what we were trying to market. We want to help women. But again, it just didn't sit. And then they sent this, and like, this to me is exactly my brand values, what Stephen just talked about there. The mum, what we wanted to care and soothe. And I just knew then straight away this was it. Never in a million years would I have done or thought of a green as the color for postpartum care for new mothers. But then as a startup, you were thinking of colors as well. Like, you have to think of that side. Now this is more on the logo side for us, but the psychological aspect of coloring for people, we looked at like the green, and when we spoke to people, like, the green was definitely the most popular because it resonated with medical, safety, tested, and Pampers was actually another one for, that's a safe brand, green. It's the triggers that go in your brain for those kind of things afterwards. But I knew straight away when I looked at that, I was like, that's it. And that's our logo, and it in reverse. So that's what we've been working with since then. Marketing on a budget, you need to understand your market. Your market has to fit your market, because your marketing has to fit your market. You have to understand how and as best you get those specific group. Like, the average age of women in Ireland have babies is in their early 30s. Like, it's those I need to market to. It's not Paddy who's 50. It's you have to understand your marketing and how well what they use, what systems they use. Are they online? Do they use newspapers? Do your market research, understand your customer 100%. And you also need to understand your business canvas model, because obviously if you're spending money on your marketing, you have, it's going to reflect your finances. You need very tight control as a startup on a budget. So what are you marketing? You're marketing a business, you're marketing yourself, you're marketing your products and yourself, sorry. So don't forget, like, put yourself on LinkedIn or Twitter, support yourself, build yourself up as a professional as well. You're marketing your products, the benefits of your products, your brand. You're trying to encapsulate, so many things in your marketing, but they all add up to your perception of somebody looking at you as a company, and if you're a trustworthy brand. The best form of marketing I've ever heard was from my mother, and it's open your mouth. If you need help with something with marketing, you ask somebody, because you'll get three things. They'll either help you, they won't help you, or they might direct you to somebody who will help you. And I think that's in all walks of life. Just open your mouth and ask the question. Don't be afraid. There's marketing supports and ideas, like definitely, obviously, the lads in the Southeast BIC are glad to help with regards to levelling up and getting into Enterprise Ireland. But contact your local enterprise office. There's supports there. They have free mentorship. You know, you could get somebody to evaluate your business free and give you mentorship. Obviously contact an established agency. That's where we went with ours. Enterprise Ireland, then they have given us supports as well, because we got into Enterprise Ireland as clients. And then if you're a very early stage startup and you need help, you know, setting up the business and the whole marketing aspects, I would definitely recommend doing the New Frontiers program, you know, or putting yourself in networking, that there is opportunities to learn and educate yourself. Free marketing purposes then, as I said, for you as a business, because it's not always, marketing can be expensive. So what we have done, we've looked at other opportunities. So we entered the National Startup Awards last year, and Christmas week then we got the gold for the best product and manufacturing startup. Again, that was a good news story for us to share on social media. We got networking on that online, like on links on newspapers and stuff. And then the biggest thing that we have done as a story, as a company, is our #Storylines campaign, where we knew we were going to have delays last year, and we wanted to kind of build up to our pre-launch. We decided to do a #Storylines, which is basically the stories for women for after birth and the effects of birth that has had to them on their bodies. I wanted our company to be not only just selling products, but we've also have to pivot. We had to pivot as well because of the whole pandemic. We had delays and disruptions to our supply chain. So we've done online, we're building up Ask the Community Expert. So we have experts we reached out to people, doulas, pharmacists, midwives. They are offering us free services because many of them have businesses. So they will actually answer a question for us. So we know we're given this marketing, you know, we're building up them as a person, as a trusted, valued person with their business, and likewise they are with us. Then we entered the Irish Content Marketing Awards last year with our Storylines campaign, and we won it. We won it all. We won the best photography specialist, and we won the Grand Prix award, which to us was just mind blowing. We had a budget of €4,000 for that, and you have to get savvy with your money. So we used that in our Prime grant, and we got half that back. So technically we spent €2,000 and we won all these awards. Like Volkswagen had won, big massive companies in the past have won these awards, and there was us with our little budget. We were just blown away. I just wanted to share quickly some of the imagery that we used. This was one of the images that we had, and this was the Irish Times selected this as their cover for their health supplement in the magazine, and they did a double page spread. That alone was worth €250,000 of free marketing. Like, that was just mind blowing for us. We got such big, massive, it just went viral. The Huffington Post in America, it went to them. We had covers in Juno magazine. We had, which is a European women's health magazine. Mums and Tots gave us a cover in a 4-page spread. That was roughly about €25,000 worth free. Again, I suppose, think of your market. We're thinking of, this is the stories so many women wanted. We did a casting call, and we said, look, we don't have the money to pay mothers, but we will give a small donation to a charity of your choice. And we had to close the call within 12 hours because there was over 300 women contacted us wanting to share their stories. They're very powerful images, as you can see. And again, we just want people to know that this is our marketing, and that's how we're going to go. We want to care about the mother. Again, we've had to level up and trying to think of how to market ourselves now that we are actually still trying to launch. We're pre-trading because we've actually launched a wellness journal, but our products themselves have had delays, as we said, with the supply chains, and we want to launch this year. But again, we're trying to stay fresh and stay in the market. So our next hashtag campaign we've created is How Are You? And we're trying to focus on maternal mental health. So we've partnered with Parentline, which is an Irish support services for mums and dads, just to have a friendly talk, and they are linked with too, so that to help, any support that's needed. And Pandas is a UK, so we're trying to, broaden our horizon that way. That's it from me as a brand, as a company, and our story. There's so much more I could go on and on, but I'd be happy to take any questions now, and if you want to email me. But I would recommend, my top advice is to hire an agency that will help you. But then get savvy. You're a startup. You have very tight cash flow. Think outside the box. For marketing, I would definitely look at, use your platforms that are there for you as a professional, LinkedIn and Twitter. So yeah, thanks a million, everyone. I hope that was okay.
Brilliant. Thanks, Marion. And it's an important aspect of what we do in our webinars, that we hear from the likes of Marion and Stephen, who are out in the trenches, as it were. We work with a lot of clients, but sometimes no matter how we try to verbalize it or summarize it, it doesn't resonate as well as hearing it from Marion and from Stephen. So thanks for that, guys. Just keep we have one more poll, I think, Rosemary, but keep the questions coming, and if possible, use the Q&A box. Sometimes if you use the chat function, the questions can kind of get lost in the mix in there a little bit. So do keep the questions coming. So Rosemary, I think we're doing our last poll, and then we'll have our Q&A session. So the last question is, we couldn't do a webinar these days without the word pandemic being mentioned somewhere. Has the pandemic forced you to change your route to market strategy? Is that a no? Yes, we have moved more online, or we were always online anyway. So again, just tick those boxes and we can get some of that. Just to go through some of the questions there. I think, Niall, you kind of answered there, but we'll just kind of highlight it because it was very interesting from Caitlin, about Caitlin's point was being that a lot of what was being said today was applicable maybe to businesses providing a product, and how can what was said today be applied to businesses providing a service. So just to maybe summarize what you did answer there, Stephen, but maybe just to kind of for the rest of the audience, maybe to.
Yeah, so I suppose the same things apply. Deep dive on the target market. What's important to them? What problems do they have, and how can you solve them? Once you've identified who your target market is, then you can start to think about where do they where do they hang out. So whether that's on social media, whether that there's particular media publications that they read. And you can start to focus your attention on those particular platforms. Caitlin's own business is she's a dog groomer, so it would be a case of like getting very, very specific with your target market there. You could start off by saying, oh, it's all dog owners, but you have to start diving deep down into that. Well, is someone who's a hunting dog owner, are they going to be part of your target audience? Maybe not. So we won't start targeting them. Is there particular breeds of dogs that you specialize in? Then let's focus on those. And start to really look at what's the challenges, and how can you solve challenges for that particular cohort. And then it's about looking back at yourself and saying, how can I bring my own unique personality to the fore? And that's where the values come into it. So establishing your own brand values, establishing what's important to you, and then combining those with what's appropriate to your target customers. That'll help to differentiate you from the competition, and kind of give you your own unique voice and your own unique brand in the marketplace.
Okay, and maybe there's a question here, maybe each of you can give some insights. What can you do to create engagement on social media and increase your audience, even when you are already posting consistently? Is it quality over quantity, or is social media all about regular posting or whatever? What's your views on that? Whoever wants to take that up first, Marion, on social media.
Yeah. Well, we're trying to, as I said, build up our platforms on social media. And just for an example, like the Instagram one was just literally, obviously at the start, we were sharing with friends and family. We've only had a steady post. I haven't been consecutively posting on there. Like I pop in every now and again because I don't want to get too much engagement before we launch. I'm trying to, build it up that we get a steady following and people are actually anticipated and waiting for us to launch. I think we had a New Year's one, and last week we put up one for the first time. It was because we launched the journal, the postpartum journal, and that was kind of our activity so far on that. Engagement.
Social media, it is about it's about having a strategy, isn't it, and knowing where your customer is. So, like in Marion's case, your customer is an Instagram
Yeah, absolutely.
Or their Facebook. It's about knowing where they, and to quote Stephen, where they hang out, understanding exactly where they hang out, and then building a strategy around that. So keeping that consistent message, building, like using some of the platforms to schedule your post, have new information all the time, changing around your imagery, yet staying close to your brand strategy. So it's about like, I know I should practice what I preach, but it is about having a strategy and a plan and a calendar, and really building that into your plan. Obviously then you can outsource that then as you get bigger, or as you have funds, you can outsource that to other people who can support you with that, but you still have to have your content.
We're on a budget, as every startup is, but we've actually just got an intern. So she's she's actually in America, but she's majoring in marketing and finance. So what we have her doing now at the moment for us before we launch is she's building up a tile library for social media. So we have that ready. That'll obviously save costs for us when we go to launch, because we have all this information ready and, to go to share. So it's just trying to get savvy. And like that, what we got a lot of our followings from on social media was our hashtag storylines campaign. And when, that we actually did something different and we put it out there. And one of the mothers, the girl Ali, she had the triplets, she has a big following on social media, and she shared it, and that got us a lot of interaction and a lot of subscribers on our mailing list that went to our website and registered, for updates and information.
And Stephen, one of the things that we practice, or we preach here, whatever we're practicing, we're preaching to our clients, and hopefully it resonates with Marion as well. But there's a question here about branding, and should all communications mirror the design of the website, and how important is that? Or should the website mirror something else? Where's the mirroring piece in terms of the branding and the consistency of approach across?
So I suppose from a consistency, from our point of view, consistency is important. What consistency does is it breeds familiarity. So if to use Marion's example, if Marion's tone of voice and the way Marion communicates across social media is quite informal, and the imagery is of a particular style, but then that the person who's engaged in social media moves across to the website and it looks totally different, there's something there that's not going to ring true. So making sure that you have that consistency, that your tone of voice is consistent, that the language you use across social media is consistent with the language you use on the website, that the visuals that you're sharing, if you've got, for argument's sake, if you've got one version of your logo on your social profiles and you've got a different version of your logo on the website, why is that? What's the reason for that? For argument's sake, if your website is blue, but everything, all of your vans have, black and green on them, and then your social media posts, they're all in yellow and blue, having that kind of mishmash and it starts to make things look maybe a little bit unprofessional and a little bit disorganized, having that consistency across everything. So, while the question there is to, should you start with the website? It depends on what's most appropriate for you as a start point. If it's purely in person, or your for argument's sake physical location, then maybe getting your shop front and signage is the most important thing, and then maybe getting your van consistent with the shop front and signage. Then you move on to your social media graphics, that they're all consistent with everything you've done previously. But just making sure that there's a consistency there, that everything looks like it's coming from the same voice, everything looks like it's coming from the same business. So that's the most important thing.
Building a corporate identity at the start, like Marion explained how she went through that process of building the logo, building that brand identity. And it's not just the logo, it's that whole identity, it's the tone of voice, it's the marketing communications, it's the plan, it's starting that at a really early stage, and then fulfilling. You can tell from the imagery that Marion uses and the colors and the consistency around the packaging, all the way through to what the consumer gets in their hand eventually. And it's the same, it's irrespective if you're a service or a product, it is about that look and feel and the tone. And it's great to hear you say that about the tone of voice, Stephen, about how you express yourself, and that the informality or the more formal version.
I suppose I think some of the maybe, and it was great that Marion kind of acknowledged it. I suppose for a lot of people on the call today, and a lot of startups who deal with it, there's almost a fear factor to think that brand identity development is going to cost them a lot of money, and money that they could probably spend, they think, elsewhere in terms of customer acquisition or whatever. But to Marion, it was maybe top priority to get that imagery and that branding correct. So I suppose it's to demystify that a little bit, that it is important from the get-go to part of your investment in your business should be around your branding, isn't it? Marion, you'd agree with that? I'd be
Totally. I had a few friends that knew a bit. They weren't graphic designers and they did up logos. So I had about 3 other logos and I didn't share them with you because they were just, but again, like looking at them, it was getting closer and closer, but it wasn't what I wanted. And for that marketing agency that I used, for them to, like, that brief, I think was just the most important document. They got me through that, through the words that I used, that, trust and love and care and what we actually wanted to do, and to build ourselves up as a brand, as a trustworthy brand, that this is something that we have taken time, consideration, and it looks professional. You're not going to, buy a bottle that has a, half-hour sticker done up, or some kind of logo that you just don't see the meaning. Or if you don't have care to put it onto your brand or your logo, what kind of care have you done for your products? Think about it.
Yeah, and it's the expression of the value proposition, because like we talked about the problem and the solution, and using it in the customer's language and in how the customer articulates their problem and their solution, and you reflecting that back to them in your brand story and your corporate identity, and then the tone of voice and all your communications. So it's back to the very core of the concept of what you're doing and why you're doing it. And the brand is just that outward expression of that, and hopefully then will increase your sales because customers see themselves reflected back and see the solution reflected back in.
There's an interesting question here from Patrick, and it's something that I've often wondered about in terms of building an effective brand on social media. Does it involve a blend of call to action posts, kind of sell, and more personal posts? And how does one balance that? Do you need to create a kind of a human face, or must it be is your business social media channel purely for business purposes, or do you bring some personality into it as well? How does that work? Stephen, what's your thoughts on that?
From Imagine's point of view, our route to market and that kind of thing, we don't do a huge amount of social media, so we're not practicing what we preach in that regard. It's much more kind of relationship marketing, public tendering, and I'm working on that side of things. A lot of referral business. We'll do a project for client A, and then client A will recommend us to client B, and that side of things. But from the community, we do work with a lot of clients though that work like that. I don't know if you're familiar with the clothing brand Gym Plus Coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Their whole strategy and their whole ethos around social media is building the community, and everything they post is very, very much a soft sell. So it's about the community, it's about building that engagement, and it's about making people feel part of something. And Marion, I'm not sure if you would feel the same way about that, but it's really about giving value to the people you're talking to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you're trying to say and separate the channels, like especially on social media, I have my own page and I have the business page, and I don't share. I don't put myself forward on the business page. I think that is a business page, and that's what it is. I see there's a lot of crossover, even when I look at companies now at the moment. Some people, I don't know. I think it's more professional when I can, for me, in my opinion, what I'm looking at it, I try and keep that separate. That's a separate business. But as you said, like building, what information you're sharing and the value you're sharing, we want to try and share things that are of benefit. As you said, so like value, that's what you need. That's what people want to see as value. And that obviously knock-on effects of what you're trying to share or sell as a business, and how well they are selling. And how well, what they're actually doing. Are they doing what they're supposed to be doing?
Yeah. And if you can show the benefits to it, and in some respects, stop talking about yourself and start talking about what you can do for them.
Yeah, exactly.
You've a good chance of conversion if you're showing someone how it can be of benefit to them, how it can make a positive impact to them, rather than just a big buy now button.
Yeah.
And we've got lots of various questions coming about how much did it cost and all the rest. And we don't want to give away information like that on a public platform. But like Cora mentioned, is there help available? Yes, the local enterprise office has mentors. It runs workshops specifically around branding and marketing and social media. So do contact your local enterprise office as well.
And they also have some,
around that.
the Leo has some financial supports around developing your branding and your marketing proposition within their feasibility and priming grants. So yeah, it's worth getting in touch with them for that.
Get everything as a startup, get everything you can. And just other bit of advice is just for the startups is buy newspapers and like look at the newspapers and see is there any articles that are linked to you that are some way similar, and find out who has written them. Contact them on Twitter, LinkedIn, you know, ask them, could they do a write-up? Are you interested in a story on you? Anything that you can get free is the best as a startup. You know, you're just trying to get out there.
Absolutely.
And just one area that we in our daily interactions with clients as well about branding and social media between, you know, business to business as opposed to business to consumer, and how different is that? Or like we'd always say, you know, business to consumer from our advice perspective, it's a harder market, let's say, to tap into than the business to business one. How does, Rosemary, what's your thoughts on that, B2B versus B2C? And
yeah, I think there's a couple of questions on that in the questions I've noted, and it's about with B2B versus B2C. It is the B2B is about knowing where those customers are. So the B2B model, while the social media impact of it is trickier, it is about knowing where to go on LinkedIn and how to use the tools within LinkedIn and LinkedIn Navigator, etc. But B2B businesses are a lead generation business. It's a direct sales model. And while, yeah, creating some credibility on social media is important, it isn't the be all and end all for the B2B business. But it's about knowing, like, there's no point in putting up Instagram posts if you're a B2B business. So it's about, again, knowing where your client is shopping, knowing where they're making their decisions and how they're making those decisions. And they may be influenced on LinkedIn, but they won't be influenced on Facebook or Twitter. So it's back to customer discovery, and we need to move back a step to go talking to our client or our potential client and to find out, where do they make decisions? How are they influenced? Who influences them and when? So that, you know, going into you're not wasting your marketing budget or your marketing plan or all your effort. From a business to consumer, the B2C piece is, we would say, is a much harder. Again, I'm talking about the Flatiron building, you know, the narrower versus the wide bit. The narrower, the better. So when you're selling B2B, generally, you know who you're selling to. You can find them. They're tangible. They're identifiable. You can create a communication plan and a sales plan and a CRM system. I know there's a couple of questions about CRM in there as well. That you can actually target. Whereas selling B2C it's like a needle in a haystack, and it's quite expensive and needs an upfront investment, really, selling B2C if you want to scale internationally at any level. But again, it is back to customer discovery. So sometimes we have to stop, even if we're way down the line with that startup, we have to stop them and go, we need to go back now and talk to your customer, your client, and understand how they want to be communicated to. Because people are afraid to talk to clients until they're ready, until they have the product and the service ready. But we would say, no, if you have a sketch on a page, if you have an idea in your head, you start talking to your customers, your clients.
Yeah, I'm just conscious of time, and I think we will call a halt there. A lot of the questions there that remain have been kind of covered in our conversation. So thanks for that, and thanks for everybody for posting questions and comments. It was great. Rosemary, are we sharing the poll results now, or is it that emailed out after?
Yeah, we'll stick the poll results on the email. It's just easier.
Yeah, and we'll have a recording of this on our YouTube channel and the slides if anybody wants them later as well. So look, at this point, I would just like to thank our panelists, Marion, Stephen, and Rosemary for their insights. As I said, it's a big topic. We could spend a lot of time talking about individual components of marketing and branding and all the rest of it. But today, the purpose of today was very much to give an introduction and a feel for the work that we do here in the BIC, and to get Marion's and Stephen's perspectives from working at the coalface with clients. So thank you guys very, very much. Really appreciate your time and your insights.
And if anybody wants to reach out to me as a startup, I'm happy to talk to them and share any tips or anything.
Right. And listen, thanks to the team here in the BIC for organising as well. It's great. And as I said, check out our webpage or check out our newsletter. We have a series of these events planned through the year, because it looks like we're online for the foreseeable future. So we'll be doing these webinars on a pretty regular basis throughout the year. So do check out our website or newsletter and get updates on that. So with that, I think, unless I've missed anything.
Well, no, unfortunately we didn't get to all the questions because it was a flood of
yeah, there was at the end, yeah.
Everybody, but we'll be big thanks to Stephen and the team at Imagine and Marion and everybody at A New Mum. We'll be sharing Marion and Stephen's web addresses, etc. if you want to have a look at what they're at or what services that Imagine provide, and when and register your interest with Marion to see when she's launching her product range.
Okay, listen guys, thanks very much. We'll leave it there. Thanks a million. Everybody take care of themselves. Stay safe.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Take care. God bless.
Bye-bye.
Bye.